to Sports by Brooks on Fancred. It's a Monday and an eventful last couple of days. I definitely have a lot to say to you. This is Brooks Melchior live from Los Angeles, California. And we do this every Monday through Friday, weekdays, beginning at noon Eastern time. My producer today is Cam Smith. Coming up on the show, we'll be talking boxing. That's right, boxing. Big fight over the weekend. Deontay Wilder does it again. Sucks as a boxer. Can't box a lick, but can knock out a guy with one punch. That's exactly what happened with Ortiz. Knocked him out in the 7th round. And we literally have the best boxing writer on the planet. Literally. Now, I know I say that once in a while about a lot of people, but this guy is the real deal. Number one boxing breaking news guy, but a guy that really lives it. He lives in LA. Mike Cobb is always saying, come on down to the gym, Brooks. And, Jay Glazer, by the way, Jay Glazer, Mr. MMA, Mr. Bellator, if you don't know, he's got me down in the gym now. I mean, I got to stay away from these guys. I'm going to get knocked out. But Mike Coppinger will join us and talk some boxing. It's going to be cool. And we'll talk. I can't wait to talk to him about Ruiz, Joshua, find out if he's going to Saudi, what that's going to be like for him, Saudi Arabia, and Tyson Fury. Find out what the hell's going on with Tyson Fury. Now, is he a wrestler? I mean, he should be getting into acting. Forget about, well, I guess that's what you do. You go into wrestling and it is acting, and then you end up in movies. I predict Tyson Fury someday will be like in the comic book movies, or he will be like James Bond's not really a thing anymore. So James Bond villain, but not really, that's when you were in the 1980s and 70s, a James Bond villain. 1970s, really, that was a big deal. Right. So we'll talk Tyson Fury and his fight coming up against Deontay Wilder, who gets through Ortiz. And that's going to be a couple of interesting fights. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, very intriguing fights. Not really, back in the day, Muhammad Ali and George Foreman or Ken Norton, or even more recently, Evander Holyfield. But still, Tyson Fury, I think, is the guy. We should try to get him on this show because he's a phenomenal person. I mean, Deontay Wilder is too, actually. Maybe we'll look into that. Cam, make a note of that. Cam Smith, our producer. I really like to get them both on. Why not? Get them both, do like 3 people on the screen, have them yelling at each other. When they first fought the first time, Fury and Wilder, it was phenomenal promotion. Amazing. So we'll have that coming up. That'll be at the top of the hour. Coppinger will join us. Coming up here in a bit, we're going to talk college football with Brett McMurphy. But, we're not just going to do the old backwash the games from Saturday. By the way, speaking of backwashing the games, Ohio State and Penn State. Sometimes I feel like I'm in outer space, like in a bubble, boy in the bubble, right? I'm watching this Ohio State game, and Penn State, from the time they got on the bus, got off the bus, go onto the field, right? Step onto the field, go off to the side. I mean, they did not look like they wanted to be there. There was I know some of their guys were out warming up without shirts, things like that. But for the most part, Penn State just didn't look interested. And Ohio State kept them in the game with turnovers. Yet, we're led to believe that, it was a competitive game. Well, the score was competitive, but the game wasn't. Penn State was never in the game. The only way they were in the game at all, when I say they were never in the game, they were close, right? But at the end, that was solely due to turnovers that were converted by Penn State, period. Penn State's offense was a non-entity. Okay. So, and look, I think that Ohio State is in for a rude, is going to be in for a rude, I'm going to predict it right now, rude awakening come the college football playoffs. Okay. I mean, how bad is the Big Ten? And we'll see what happens against Michigan. I don't know about you, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I really can't, because I had completely given up the ship. I had completely and totally abandoned Michigan and Jim Harbaugh as a relevant college football program this season. But you know what? You think about last year's Ohio State game when, of course, it was 180 degrees and it was all Michigan. And then Haskins comes out and he's, puts on one of the greatest performances in the history of that series. Just an unbelievable game. It was such a pleasurable day. I mean, you're never really going to, unless you live in Columbus I worked in Columbus, worked at Ohio State and did the broadcast myself. But unless you're there in Ohio, you're never going to root for Ohio State, right? Talk about the ultimate front runner. But it was a satisfying feeling watching Harbaugh go down in flames last year here's the key, when they had such high expectations and then they get everything cut out from under them. That was beautiful. That was an amazing game. Amazing. So, but this year it's very different. And you're looking at somebody, you're listening to someone who has I've been to like 6 of those games now. And don't think necessarily that that Michigan is going to have a huge home field advantage. They won't. Just to give you an idea of the dynamic, and I want to try to get we got to get somebody on who cares about this game. I really don't care about it, but I'm interested to talk about it because of the personalities. That's what makes it for me. And of course, Ohio State, we'll see what happens. They're riding high. We still don't really know about them, but Burt Breer's the guy we got to get on. Burt Breer. But this week, before the week is out. By the way, we're not going to be broadcasting Thanksgiving Day or Friday. We're off those days. We'll be back on Monday after the Thanksgiving holiday. But we'll be with you Monday through Wednesday. And then coming up later on the show today at 1:30, 1:20, I should say. One of my favorite guys is Steve Hartman here in Los Angeles. KTLA anchor, but not a typical guy. He has been hosting a sports talk show in Los Angeles for upwards of 30 years, but he's not really an old guy. He's not one of those guys, old musty guy with a hairpiece or that kind of thing. No, he's a relatively youngish still guy, relevant, and he does Fox Sports Radio. And right now he does a weekday talk show on Extra 1360 in San Diego, which is great because you can hear it here in LA. And that's kind of the way it works with the San Diego and Los Angeles radio markets. You get to listen to whatever's going on in San Diego if you want. It used to be much bigger, but Steve does the Loose Cannon show on Extra Sports 1360 in San Diego, heard here in Los Angeles. And today we're going to be talking to him. He is arguably as good an authority on assessing the Phillip Rivers situation, Rivers' future with the Chargers, because Steve is as well versed on the San Diego Chargers, that market, as anyone, having done talk shows in San Diego for many, many, many years, weekday talk shows, right? San Diego Chargers, Phil Rivers. So nobody knows the San Diego Chargers and the LA Chargers. And of course, he's in LA, KTLA. That's where he's from. He went to UCLA. He's an LA guy, Steve Hartman. Nobody knows more about the situation, really, than he does. And Spanos and what's going to happen to the team. So I'm going to lean on him about Spanos, especially what he thinks, if there's any shot that Spanos would sell the team, move the team. I mean, he's not going to sell the team, but could they end up moving Mexico City? How about Mexico City? Why not? I mean, why would you stay in LA? I just don't understand why they're here. What is, and listen, I want you to know, just because somebody is a billionaire and they run this franchise, the Los Angeles Chargers, doesn't mean they're any smarter than anybody else or you or me. Dean Spanos is a dumbass. Okay. He is a dummy. And when you look at them playing over in the StubHub Center or whatever they call it now, Legacy Health or some bullcrap name, and what a disaster. It's a high school stadium. They can't sell it out. The other team takes over. I mean, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, Dean Spanos is a freaking duck. He's a joke. And I have no problem saying that. So I'm interested to hear, though. I mean, I don't know if you saw this. We played this, or maybe we didn't, last week when they were in Mexico City and the Charger fans booed Dean Spanos. I think we did off the stage last week. That was beautiful. That was wonderful. So we'll talk to Steve Hartman coming up. We'll also talk to him about what's going on with SC, UCLA. SC, UCLA played over the weekend, Saturday, and it looked like it was on the scoreboard, but it really wasn't. SC was in control. By the way, as far as SC goes, I want you to know, and this is from multiple sources who have told me in the past 48 hours that Clay Helton will not be back as the head football coach at USC next year. Now, I've reported that before, but I've gone back to my sources repeatedly over and over again, and that's the situation, and it's not going to change because of recruiting and because USC particularly has been going through an unprecedented dry stretch of recruiting just in the past few months. Helton has been recruiting pretty well up until recently. Go figure, right? But they've got to get somebody in here. And I would not be surprised. I mean, obviously, James Franklin is in play. That's possible. Penn State, wouldn't be surprised at all if he's in play. Tony Elliott, remember that name. Cam, remember that name. Cam Smith, our producer. Tony Elliott, assistant coach, Clemson. Remember that name. You're going to see Tony Elliott either at US, and it sounds weird, but Tony Elliott is going to end up at USC or Florida State or maybe Arkansas or maybe Auburn if Malzahn goes to Arkansas. That's why, if you're on this show every day with us, you're going to know what's going on in advance. Nobody is giving you this information, okay? But Helton's gone, not coming back next year, no chance, all right? Urban Meyer will not be hired at USC. There's no chance. The two spots to look at for Urban Meyer's landing are Notre Dame and Ohio State. And I think you're looking at 3-4 years out. Obviously, at Ohio State, Ryan Day is a prime candidate to move to the NFL. That's kind of his profile. That's kind of his reputation. And he's coached in the NFL as an assistant coach, primed, I think, to make that move. And if he does, I think you'll see Urban Meyer slide back in at Ohio State. If that doesn't happen, I think Brian Kelly is not long for Notre Dame. May not happen after this season, but I think Brian Kelly is a guy who, by the way, I would love to see Brian Kelly go to the NFL because he is going to, I hate to be a hater, but he's going to fail like nobody. I mean, I can't imagine he would be a success. Maybe he will. Who am I? I mean, Brian Kelly made the University of Cincinnati a top 5 program, okay? Took him to the Sugar Bowl. before he skedaddled to Notre Dame with the security guards because he was so afraid of his players. Remember that? When he announced to his players in New Orleans that he was leaving to go to Notre Dame when he took the job, he had to have security around his players. Weird, right? If you can do that, you can do anything. So that's what was going on over the weekend here in Los Angeles. We had SU UCLA. It was a really dry weekend in college football because the Pac-12 sucks. Hey, it's Arizona State and a big upset over Oregon, whatever. I know Oregon is one of those teams that was in contention, not anymore, for the college football playoff. But man, I couldn't believe that Herbie and Fowler, they were out in Phoenix for that game, Tempe, Arizona State. And the whole thing about, oh, Herm's doing such a great job. Okay, we'll see how that works out. We'll see how that recruiting cycle, we'll see how it pans out. You know, pardon me if I'm a little skeptical. You know, I don't know if it's just me, but this year particularly, Herm Edwards looks like he's like aged. Something happened. Saban too. Saban looks like a nutcracker, doesn't he? Over the Christmas holidays, that nutcracker with the jowly jaws, right? Separation on his face. Yeah, nutcracker. Looks like a nutcracker, Nick Saban. And he's got to get the spray can hair going because he's got the poofy thing with the hollow, you know, in the middle on top of his head. So we had Pac-12 action. Of course, Utah remains in the hunt for the college football playoff. We'll bring back the college football professor before it's all over. Adam McClintock was with us last week informing us Alabama has no chance to make the college football playoff. Bama, of course, has Auburn coming up, right? And we've got Utah taking on, Colorado. That's coming up on Saturday, I do believe. Or is it? Let me see the day on that. Let me make sure I'm right on that. Yeah. Colorado. And so you've got Utah sitting there, and you've got Oklahoma, Minnesota, and Baylor. All right. And then you've got Alabama sitting there. So it's going to be very interesting how things play out. I mean, who knows? Alabama might still get in if Georgia beats LSU. But, you know, let me just say this. I really hope LSU blows out Georgia. That's my school, University of Georgia. That's where I went to college, graduated somehow. And I was telling a friend of mine on text during the A&M game on Saturday when A&M started to come back. By the way, how bad is A&M? How bad is that offense? Jimbo Fisher makes Clay Helton's offense look like Bill Walsh and Joe Montana. I mean, Jimbo Fisher, that's like 1982 offensive scheme. Can we please update the scheme? The sad part is Georgia's no better, right? Jake Fromm, man, I would love to have Justin Fields right now as a Georgia fan. Jesus. No Georgia fan in the state of Georgia would admit that right now, but Fromm looked awful against A&M. That was just a horrible game. But that's the way it's been all year in the SEC, except for LSU. I would love to see LSU boat race Georgia, right? So maybe Kirby Smart will wake up and will install a real offense like what LSU has, you know? One thing is for certain, though. I'll guarantee you that the whole world, coaches I'm talking about, head coaches, assistant coaches, are going to be, and in fact, I've got a buddy down there. I'm going to ask him about it because he's connected to that staff. The whole world is going to be going down to Baton Rouge to talk to Joe Brady and try to figure out what the hell LSU did this year with the passing game. Joe Brady, of course, the assistant who came over from the Saints and now is the co-offensive coordinator with Steve Emsinger at LSU. But everybody's going to want to know, what the hell did LSU do? Well, Joe Burrow's a big part of it, but let me tell you, man, where was Joe Burrow last year? Nowhere. Where was he at Ohio State? Nowhere. It's Joe Brady. Joe Burrow's got a lot of talent, but don't get carried away. All right. Burrow's been around a long time. And yes, they've unlocked his ability. But it's like Kyle Allen with Carolina. I mean, I was just thinking about this, watching the highlights of the Panthers earlier this morning. And I'm thinking to myself, Cam Newton is like a transcendent talent. And he's been playing hurt for years. And he has this Liz Frank injury. I don't know if you know what that is. That is a fracture, period. It's this weird fracture in your metatarsals of your foot that overlap and stuff. So when you have a Liz Frank injury, right, you got problems. You have no business on a football field, or no business listening to Ron Rivera telling you, well, you could still get back, rehab, go ahead. Right. No. Cam Newton's finally going to get healthy. And I have no doubt. I mean, people seem to think that he's lost something, this, that, and the other. Dude, he has been severely injured. I mean, that injury to his foot is a serious injury. And of course, he's had the arm problems. You give him a chance to get healthy. Just look at what LeBron did. Look at what he's done when he had a chance to rest his body. I really believe Cam Newton is going to go crazy. Cam Newton is going to go crazy when he comes back. And I heard this discuss. I think it was Steve Hartman was talking about it on Fox Sports Radio, our guest coming up at 1:30. They were talking about 1:20. I'm sorry. I think they were talking about Phil Rivers Cam Newton going to the Chargers as a possibility. I just can't see that. I don't know. If Tepper's smart, the new owner, David Tepper at Carolina, I mean, that would be a catastrophic mistake. Oh, Kyle out. We got this new quarterback. He's great. Dude, you're nuts. Cam Newton is a Hall of Famer, and he's not done. He's not done. Mark my words. I'm right about these things. So we've been taking you around the NFL, college football. Coming up later, we're going to talk some boxing with Mike Coppinger, and then we'll talk some college football, SoCal style. College football playoff, we're going to talk with Steve Hartman because he has the formula for the playoff. He's got the idea of how to do it, and we're going to have him run it by you. And then we'll talk about the Rams and the Ravens. Big game tonight. Now, don't get too excited about that game. I mean, I'm excited about Lamar Jackson, of course, and the Ravens, but I'm not excited about the Rams. And we'll see what happens. We've had some games lately that we thought were going to be really good that turned out to be duds. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it, but this is just not the same Rams team. The offensive line is a total disaster. Jared Goff is not an improvisational quarterback. It's a joke that they made the commitment that they made to him. And, you know, I was speaking of commitments, you look at the amount of money the Rams have spent on players, right? That stadium originally was supposed to cost $2 billion. I heard this morning on the news here in Los Angeles, it's now got a $6 billion price tag. $6 billion. And on top of that, you have this ongoing legal action by the city of St. Louis. Holy cow. And Kroenke is footing the bill for everything. Now, he's got the Walton money. His wife is, I think, the daughter of Bud Walton, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. So don't cry for him. Don't worry about it. But, man, that's amazing. You look at the stadium, $6 billion. What the? Huh? I mean, it's in Inglewood. It's not in Beverly Hills. We're not talking about Bel Air here. So, look, I want to get into some different subjects today specifically. And here at some point. Just heard from some people on my little text machine and my Twitter machine as we look to book some more guests coming up and bring some people to you as we go along. But so if you have those clips handy, I want to take a look first of all, I want to talk quickly about Jerry Jones, because I mean, when I'm talking about something, no one else is talking about it, and it's relevant, and it's going to be instructive, and you're going to be like, huh, yeah. Well, Jerry Jones, after the game last night in the locker room, Tom Curran, friend of the show, comes on all the time, NBC Sports Boston. He is the father of Bo Curran, his dog. And so Tom Curran was able to get some great video of Jerry Jones in the locker room last night at Gillette Stadium after the 16-9 loss by the Cowboys to the Patriots. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, you look at that Cowboys roster. This is the best roster I can remember. I mean, you go back to the Super Bowl, Barry Switzer, whatever, I mean, I can't remember a time when they had, I mean, the Romo years don't count. I mean, Dak Prescott is a lockdown quarterback. I mean, for them to lose that way, it's really easy to go after Jason Garrett, okay? It's really easy. But we're going to show you some things, talk about some things here, I think, that may open your eyes to the situation with the Cowboys if they aren't opened already, right? But the first thing I want to do is I want to play the clip from Jerry Jones assessing the performance and the coaching staff
I don't care if it is
of the Cowboys last night.
You can't be satisfied with it, and there's no gratification here in sitting here and being down to the last drive with the determining maybe the outcome of the game. That's not the point. You can't be satisfied with how we got out there. I don't care if it is New England this year with their record and their coach and all that. You can't be satisfied just
like
because you
Jack
got in the last drive to maybe go ahead. You know, you have all kinds of conjecture, and I'm turning right back around scores. So the point is that I'm just really frustrated with, I thought we could come up here and really put together a better effort in all three phases. I expect us to play well against them defensively.
I know you
so we got what I think we should have expected
under the bus
out of our defense. But the other phases of the game, we've got to. We can't come up here and play like that
because of what happened.
Right. So he throws the offensive staff under the bus and the special team staff. Right. Okay. That's the owner of the team. Now, let's take a look. Actually, I want to make my point. I'm so flummoxed that people don't make the point I'm about to make in this situation, right? That we have not carried over our assessment of Jerry Jones from the past to now is amazing. In the past, everyone has always said Jerry Jones is meddling too much. He talks too much. He's got the big ego, right? Undermining the coaching staff, distracting the players, muddying the waters. That's all about him. And that's all true. But in the past, they've had crap talent. So on top of all of that criticism, people would criticize Jones primarily for the lack of talent. Now, things are different. Now, you have a Super Bowl roster. If you look at the NFC is strong, but it's not unreasonable to observe that the Cowboys could go to the Super Bowl. In fact, they've got a pretty good shot. If they can keep it together, stay healthy, got a pretty good shot. You would think, right? But they're not going to the Super Bowl. Who knows what they'll do in the playoffs? They're not going to the Super Bowl because of what you just watched. The same thing that he's been doing for decade after decade after decade, dating back to the 90s. Jerry Jones undermining the coaching staff, right? Constantly critiquing everything. And I know the general manager of the Cowboys is doing it now too. Well, gee, I wonder why. We sit here and we absolutely destroy Jason Garrett, destroy him. And now I want to run that clip. So let me set this up, Cam Smith, our producer. So I have this clip of Jason Garrett. Now, part of the clip you probably have seen or aware of when he had the high fives out, low fives out, Jason Garrett on the sideline during a game last month, and he couldn't get the players ignored him, walked right by him as he had the low five out or the high five out. It was hilarious, right? Well, that's part of the clip. Last night, the same thing happened, and we're going to show it to you with Dak Prescott. I'm so excited. I'm like triggered. I'm just, wow. Dak Prescott. The same thing happened with him. Dak Prescott walked right by Jason Garrett, who had his hand out. I mean, it's like a movie. Now, there's one other little instance, and the beginning of it is what you're looking at right now. That's Randy Gregory of the Cowboys. And this happened, right, in the recent past. And so as he was walking off the field, you can see Jason Garrett saying, "Hey, Randy, come here." And Gregory just walked right by him like he wasn't even there. He could hear him. He kind of turned a little bit towards him, but ignored him. Look at the funny jetpack that Garrett has on. So here's Garrett against the Jets. Yeah, which we all got a chuckle out of that. And then finally, I'm going to show you what happened yesterday at Gillette Stadium with Dak Prescott. There's your boy on the right. Right now, watch it. We'll run it again for you here. Watch him. He's in the hat. Slow it down for you. There you go. There you go, Dak. And he walks. I mean, here's the thing. Dak didn't see it, obviously, but he's running within a foot of his head coach. All right? His head coach. Let me repeat. That's the head coach. And he's looking the other direction. It really looks like he's doing that on purpose, that he's deliberately ignoring Garrett. Now, let's now go back to Jerry Jones. Jason Garrett is a goof. He's a goon. He's like Flounder in Animal House when they first go into, the fraternity house the very first time. They almost get hit in the head with beers, right? So they open the door and they put him over in the, nerd room, whatever it is. They hold their hands out. I think Flounder does. You might remember that, Cam Smith, our producer in Animal House. Flounder holds out his hand to shake somebody's hand and they ignore him. Or no, I think it's when Flounder goes and is checking out the guys from the Delta House and they're playing cards. And he walks up and goes, "Hey guys, you playing cards?" And everybody, this is Animal House, all the guys in the frat, John Belushi and company, look up from the card table and then look back down like he's not even there. That's Jason Garrett right there, right? That's who he reminds me of. So here's the thing. The Cowboys have enough talent right now, and they have a sufficient coaching staff to win the Super Bowl right now. But you would never, ever know it. Think about their roster. Think about Dak Prescott, the strides he has made. this season. Huge leap, right? And now think about the other contenders for the Super Bowl in the NFC. And the Cowboys are right there. They could beat any of those teams. Although the Niners, Jesus, boy, they're looking good, aren't they? But so in my opinion, the Cowboys could go to the Super Bowl. They've got the talent to do it, and they haven't had that talent in a long time. They've got a solid leader and quarterback. And that's to Jerry Jones' credit. That's his guy, Dak Prescott, right? But they're not going to make it. And they're not going to make it because you've got an owner undercutting the coaching staff. And that owner has been doing it from day one. Now, he wasn't doing it like this when Jimmy Johnson was there, because Jimmy Johnson would fight him because they played at Arkansas together and, cats and dogs. He did it when Barry Switzer was there, winning a Super Bowl for the Cowboys. But now it's not out of control. That's the Dallas Cowboys. And remember this. This is the most important point of this whole discussion. This is what legitimizes me saying what I'm saying. Nobody talks about what Jones is doing. Nobody says, what is he doing? He's the owner. Why is he saying this stuff? He's killing the coaching staff. He's distracting the players. He's muddying the waters. Who are the players supposed to be loyal to? Who are the players supposed to listen to? Right? Jason Garrett is getting thrown under the bus every 5 minutes in his own locker room, right? Those are the New England Patriots reporters filming that, right? That's not a one-off once a year because no. He does that every day. And he goes on the radio with the guys in Dallas who are on our show, 105.3 The Fan. Jerry Jones. I think we asked Jared Sandler, I think it was, or Jeff Kavanaugh from 105.3. We were asking him, like, why does Jerry do that? Because it's all about Jerry. And so that's stupid, weird, absurd, ridiculous that the owner does that. Just coach the team, for crying out loud. You played at the University of Arkansas. You were a teammate of Barry. I don't know if you know this, guys, but Jerry Jones was a teammate of Barry Switzer and Jimmy Johnson at the University of Arkansas as a football player. And so just coach the team, Jerry. Now, that sounds ridiculous, right? Right. It's no more ridiculous to make that suggestion than it is to stand in your own locker room and throw your coaching staff under the bus after that loss yesterday. Well, Garrett, he's too conservative and he takes over the right. The thing with Garrett is he's got no authority. None. That's why we just showed you those clips again. And it wasn't just that one instance against the Jets. It was Randy Gregory and it was Dak Prescott yesterday. Right? God knows how many times that's happened in practice or in other games when people we don't really pay attention to that stuff, but I'm sure it happens dozens of times a year. That's the head coach of the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Okay? The players, they're not his boss. He's their boss. Oh, but not if you're part of the Cowboys, right? Jerry is the boss. Jerry is the de facto coach, and Jerry is the obstacle between the Cowboys and the Super Bowl. And now, for the first time that I can really remember, I mean, they've had talented teams. They've had teams that you thought, well, a couple of breaks here and there. They're going to need some luck here. There's a team there that's better. But no, this year, they're as good as any team. They are. And the division is terrible. All right? So that should be smooth sailing. they could go to the Super Bowl and no one would dispute that. So now we're going to find out. Now we're really going to see. Now we're really going to see what the big, fat, ugly problem is. Like we've never seen it before, at least in recent memory with the Cowboys. There was always a fallback. Oh, well, they're not even that good, you know, they're not really all that great. And well, that's Jerry's fault too. Right? Well, you don't have that anymore. And it's not a coincidence that Jerry's doesn't have his fingers in the pie of player personnel the way he used to. Of course, he was the problem before, but he's still there. Look, as long as Jerry Jones remains upright, the Cowboys are not going to the Super Bowl. Mark it down. They're just not. And I'm amazed that nobody says a word about Jerry Jones doing what he does. How extraordinary it is. Remarkable it is. I mean, in my lifetime, I don't think I've ever seen Mike Brown ever, right, on a game day of the Cincinnati Bengals. And Mike Brown's like 300 years old, right? I mean, Dan Snyder is as high a profile owner as there is. I've never seen him speak on game day about anything of import, if at all. Okay? Right? Jerry Jones is a weirdo. I don't know what he's doing, but he's been doing it forever. And he's the problem. And now we're really going to see it this year. We're already seeing it. Right? And the fact that we have certain critiques about Jason Garrett, I mean, Jason Garrett is literally a joke. He's a punchline. He's a punchline. But clearly that's the way Jerry wants it, because he wants complete, total authority, and he has certainty with Garrett that Garrett will toe the line, has no ego, does what he does. Meantime, the team loses. Great. Thanks. Right? And nobody says a word about it. Nobody says, pipe down, Jerry. Shut your pie hole. Well, you can't. Yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. Jerry, you haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1814. All right? Since Napoleon was in Moscow. You haven't been to the Super Bowl, Jerry Jones. Pipe down. The sad part is, right, even if he was to do that, Jason Garrett, and look, I'm not saying he's a good coach. We really don't know. I mean, he's in such a weird situation. And Jerry Jones, to me, if you look at the extended puke-tastic, right, record of the Cowboys over the years, vomit-worthy, right, Jerry Jones has no credibility. His assessment of the coaching staff has no credibility. He hired Jason Garrett, keeping him around. Okay? So Jason Garrett, as far as I'm concerned, has just as much credibility as anybody in that organization, at least as Jerry. Maybe not the general manager, maybe not the guys, Stephen Jones, who assembled the team, right? So one last thing, though, when it comes to Jerry Jones, and we've learned this, this is a guy I want to get on the show, the guy for The Ringer who wrote the article about Fox and Rupert Murdoch grabbing the NFL, and he did it through Jerry Jones, who had just leveraged his entire existence to get the Cowboys. God bless the guy. And then Murdoch went through Jones to get the NFL for Fox. Brian Curtis, that's who it is. We have to get him on the show at some point from The Ringer, sports media guy. But I bring this up. Jerry Jones could not be closer to Rupert Murdoch. Jerry Jones obviously is instrumental in everything the NFL does business-wise, off the field. Goes without saying, right? As active an owner as there is when it comes to league matters. And so when you have broadcast partners and particularly Fox, because right now Fox is really leaning on the NFL like it never has before to ensure its financial future, for better, for worse. Not so much Disney. And I don't think that that's going to increase that commitment. I think it's actually going to decrease. I think that Disney may get out of the sports business and may eventually sell off ESPN. Disney loves to own things. They just bought Fox's content library, right? They like to own stuff. If you're in the sports business, the whole business model is renting, and you're dealing with cord cutting. You're dealing with uncertainty, right? You've got enough uncertainty with Disney Plus. ESPN Plus just adds another layer of uncertainty for shareholders and the stock market. And that's the opposite of what you want. So if I was to guess, even though ESPN seems to be doing much better with its relationship ass kissing of the NFL, right? And of course, Jerry Jones is a big part of that ass kissing. I don't think Bob Iger and Disney is long for the NFL. I could be wrong. I will say this. As long as Disney has ESPN, I think they're going to do whatever they have to do to keep the NFL as part of it. But ESPN really is all about college football and, to a certain extent, the NBA. And that's part of the problem. Yeah, that's part of the problem for Bob Iger and Disney, because, as I said before, it's a rental. You're in the rental business, number one. Number two, in their particular case, when it comes to the NBA, they struck a disastrous deal. I don't care what anybody says. The ratings are continuing to go down. Now we're talking about this radical change in the schedule, which I'm all for. And I'd love to see European soccer style tournament things going on for the NBA teams and stuff. I think it would be a revelation, really. By the way, Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies, I highly suggest you watch him. I mentioned him on the Twitter machine, on the Twitter feed. Ja Morant, right? Murray State. He's on the Grizzlies. If you haven't seen him yet, seek him out and watch him, because for my money, along with Lamar Jackson, who we'll see tonight, the most exciting athlete right now in sports is Ja Morant. Trust me. Go to my Twitter. Go to Worldwide Wob, Rob Perez. Every night. Trey Young also. By the way, Cam Smith, our producer, do you remember when we had Rob Perez on and the one player I asked him about was Trey Young? How about that? It's prophetic. So this is Sports by Brooks on Fancred. I'm live in Los Angeles. We do this every Monday through Friday. Brett McMurphy will join us in the future. We're rescheduling him. Coming up, we'll have Mike Coppinger to talk some boxing of The Athletic. We'll talk about the Ortiz-Wilder fight. And we'll talk about the Joshua Ruiz fight, among other things. Because if anybody knows where the bodies are buried, and God knows when it comes to boxing, you got to know where the bodies are buried. Or what trunk they're in, right? It's Mike Coppinger. So he'll be with us from Los Angeles. This is going to force Mike to get up early. He'll be with us in about 10 minutes. Then later on, we'll talk to Steve Hartman, KTLA, talk show host, you name it. Let me look at this here. What do we got from our producer today? All right. Cam Smith doing a great job back at our HQ, the nerve center of Fancred in Boston today. And so we just talked about Jerry Jones, and I just want to leave it with the thought that it is weird what he does, how he manages the team. Nobody says boo. I think in part because they're used to it, right? I guess. It's not normal, though, and it'll never be normal. And it'll never happen again, probably in our lifetime, after Jerry moves on from this role with the Cowboys, whatever that is. But I have a feeling as long as he's upright, right? He doesn't have to be upright. He could do a Hugh Freeze on us, I think Jerry Jones could. He could be in a dental chair. A dental chair. Hugh Freeze. But Jerry Jones does these things, and he gets a complete pass from the media, and I laid it out for you. I'm not saying that there's this vast conspiracy. I am saying that people aren't nearly as cognizant of what's going on because, number one, they're not really thinking about it because Jerry's done it for so long, right? And it seems normal. That's number one. And number two, management. They're not in the business of tearing down Jerry Jones, right? And I'm not either. I'm just pointing it out. He's the problem. Yeah, he's the problem. And now the other side of the coin is, well, it's great for the Cowboys because it keeps them in the discussion all around the country. America's team. There's the owner. He's on radio, television, all that stuff. Great. If you don't care about winning, great. Name yourself the coach, Jerry. Just coach the team. And while you're at it, if you're not going to coach the team, don't talk about winning, because if it was about winning, you would shut your pie hole. That's the problem. I'm not defending Jason Garrett. I'm not saying he's a good coach. We don't really even know what kind of coach he is. Think of it this way. What would we think of Bill Belichick if Bob Kraft did what Jerry Jones did? Now you say, well, that would never happen. Right. Okay. It could easily happen because it's happening. Right. Well, they're different person. Give me a break. I mean, now I'm not saying it would happen with Belichick because we saw what Belichick did with the Jets, right? He doesn't put up with a lot of crap, but so, all right. Now, that's it for Jerry Jones. You know, I bring up Jerry Jones. You would think, man, what could you possibly say about Jerry Jones is going to be interesting or instructive or informative or really make me think of something in a different way? We just did it. And we did it with footage, film, right? Inanimate, documented facts. All right. What do we have left here that we're working on right now? We've got Mike Coppinger coming up. And with that right around the corner, I want to run. Why don't we, so we're going to have Mike on, and then we're going to have Steve on. So why don't we do this now? Let's bring you the highlight of the weekend, which was right before, not the Baylor-Texas game, right before the Baylor-Texas game. The head coach of the Texas Longhorns, Tom Herman. Why don't we play the clip number 1 to start things off? This is Tom Herman, the coach of the Texas Longhorns, before the game against Baylor Saturday. This was your highlight. This won the weekend right here. Clip number 1. Or we can play you if you want to play number 5 or number 6, whichever. So that's Tom Herman, the coach of Texas, right here. Okay. Right. So he's headbutting one of his players, Tom Herman. Cocaine is a hell of a drug. So let's look at, let's do a different perspective on that. Clip number 5. This is part of the FS1 broadcast of Tom Herman. Oh, we're going to bring you other angles. We've got full coverage wall to wall here. Clip number 5, Tom Herman from the FS1.
Coach here just moments ago with his squad. Hey, Robert Smith, he's fired up. He's fired up. Banging that
Different angle.
Against the helmet. A little bit dangerous right there. I guess.
A little bit dangerous. I love Robert Smith.
Show your PR.
Yeah. What a mess that guy is. Wow. Robert Smith, by the way, good guy, Ohio State guy. I like him. Was in the studio at Fox Sports doing college football last year. I thought he was the best guy on their studio panel. He's a guy we should look at bringing on if we get a chance. Robert Smith. You know who he is. Former Viking. Really smart guy. And good dude. Coming up tomorrow, by the way. Oh, let me finish the Texas stuff. So Texas got boat raced by Baylor. They're 6-4. Clarence Hill Jr., by the way, has given up on Texas now. That's how bad it is. Our guy in Dallas covers the Cowboys, Texas guy. But the Longhorns are having a terrible year. The Longhorns are waiting for a phone call from the Alamo Bowl any second now. But let's go back, as a Georgia football fan that I am, let's go back in time. Let's go into the time machine, right? Let's go back to the Sugar Bowl when Texas beat up on my Georgia Bulldogs. What happened after the game? Well, the captain of the Longhorns this year, their quarterback last year, Sam Ehlinger, this is clip number 7, was speaking with Holly Rowe after the game and said this. You might remember it.
We're back. Longhorn Nation, we're back.
Got it, Cam. All right. Thanks for the update, Sam Ehlinger. Didn't work out that way, right? Belated update. No, they're not back. 6-4 is not back if you're Texas. Alamo Bowl's not back if you're lucky. So Texas has fallen off the face of the earth. And this is a Texas team that absolutely, positively should have lost to Kansas. Should have lost to the Kansas Jayhawks, right? So, speaking of Kansas, right? Kansas football, right? I want to look something up really fast. I want to see, Les Miles, right? Of course. Les Miles is at Kansas. And let me just say this first. I remember when he got hired. I actually knew he was going to get hired about a month before it happened and didn't really even report it. Just kind of wanted to leave it alone to make sure I didn't screw anything up. That's a true story. But Kansas lost to Texas 50-48. You might remember that game. Texas with a miracle comeback to win. But Kansas has had a pretty good year. All things being equal. Pretty good year. At least compared to the past few years. And in consideration of, losing to Indiana State to start the year, right? When you look at their horrific start, which included a loss to Coastal Carolina, right? But then you may remember they blew out Boston College, which was one of the highlights for me of the season. Anything that Les Miles is involved in that's good for him, that's a highlight. That's something to remember. They beat Texas Tech, and they played West Virginia close. And, let's not get carried away, right? Let's do the scores. Can't say that I've been following Kansas all that closely. That said, I remember when Les Miles was at LSU, I broke the story at the time that he was looking at going to the University of Arkansas to take over as head coach there. This was actually during the season. This happened about 8 years ago. And so the University of Arkansas, as you know, is a shambles right now. And they're looking for a head coach. from what I understand, my sources, right? And I've got sources, especially in this situation. From what I understand, Gus Malzahn's probably going to go to Arkansas. And no one's saying this yet, but if you're watching this show, you're ahead of the game. Gus Malzahn's probably going to leave, and I'm being serious here. He's probably going to leave Auburn and go home because that is his home, Springdale, Arkansas, which is the home of Walmart and very close to Fayetteville, Arkansas. I've got family down there. My grandparents lived there. My mom lived there at one point. And beautiful part of the country, God's country, University of Arkansas. So University of Arkansas, Les Miles. Miles has done a pretty good job. Listen, here's the thing. Kansas is like Rutgers. It's a disaster. It's a cesspool. Take it for somebody who grew up in Kansas City like me. Kansas football is beyond a joke, right? No one's ever talking about upgrading the facilities for the Kansas football program. Nobody. They've got a high school stadium and nobody says boo about it. Obviously, it's a basketball school, right? I think Allen Fieldhouse might be bigger than the football stadium for all I know. But so for Les Miles to go in there, I remember when he first got hired, as I said before, I had been talking to some people who are connected. And listen, this is really kind of funny, actually, inside baseball, but the whole time Les is just itching for a gig. What had happened to Les Miles, and this hasn't been reported either, is he had done a lot of auditions to try to get on studio shows at CBS and ESPN, and it didn't work, which is pretty amazing when you think about what a personality is, what a draw he is. Now, I understand he's on every day and during the season, it might be different. Quirky, weird, strange guy. Can be at times, it seems like. But I would have watched it. I mean, first of all, here's the thing. Who cares when it comes to studio analysts in college football? Like that matters? Like they have to get anything right or wrong or what? It's just Phil. Stick Les Miles in there. Well, it didn't work out that way. And that's why he ended up, really, really pining for a job. And so Jeff Long, who was at Arkansas when Arkansas and Jeff Long offered Les Miles that job while Miles was still at LSU. And I broke that story at the time, broke it wide open. It was later confirmed by Les Miles the next morning, actually, in a press conference. But didn't take it. Stayed at LSU, and then eventually was fired. But so Jeff Long leaves Arkansas, goes to Kansas, and that's why Les Miles is at Kansas. So I'm not saying Les Miles is going to Arkansas. What I am saying is Arkansas should hire him. They should. They should hire him over Gus Malzahn. Now, Malzahn is an Arky guy. Don't ever say Arky if you're inside the state line, by the way, of Arkansas. Don't say Arky. But I'm just going to, between us, we'll say Arky. Les Miles is not an Arkansas guy. He's an Oklahoma guy, right? Malzahn is an Arkansas guy who made his bones as this sort of offensive savant guru in Arkansas high school football, right? You look at the Auburn offense these days, well, it makes perfect sense. Arkansas high school football. There you go, right? Bored to tears. No scoring. Horrible. But there's a school of thought that Malzahn's going to leave Auburn, go back home. I mean, Malzahn is actually going to be inducted into the Arkansas Sports, not the school, Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame, like early next year, I think. Talk about timing, right? And Malzahn isn't exactly the most popular guy at Toomer's Corner these days in Auburn, right? People getting a little antsy. More specifically, as we've chronicled on this show, Jimmy Rain, Super Booster, the richest man in the state of Alabama. Cam and I like to call him the yellow fella, right? He's got the wood preservation business that he's got rolling. Billionaire. Jimmy Rain is his name. He is a booster at Auburn University. All right. So my sources have told me, and they continue to tell me, including in the past 48 hours over the weekend, that Jimmy Rain is talking to coaching candidates, contingency candidates, in the event that Gus Malzahn decides to leave Auburn and go to Arkansas. If Malzahn does that, it's going to cost him $7 million. But there's a possibility there could be a settlement. There could be a negotiation because, well, we don't want Gus to have to spend all of that money, especially when we want him out of here, right? So that's the situation right now. Is you've got Gus Malzahn sitting there at Auburn, and they're probably going to lose to Alabama. I'm not so sure that. Boy, you got some really inside knowledge. Oh, I forgot you're the high school guy, Cam. By the way, you got some amazing inside knowledge there of what's going on down there in Arkansas. Actually, too much knowledge. Start to worry about a little unnatural for my liking. So Malzahn is, I think he's going to end up at Arkansas personally, right? Unfortunately, and that would mean Les doesn't get hired. And Les isn't going to get hired anyway. I just think, I just want to emphasize one thing in the context of Les Miles, what he's doing at Kansas. He comes off as this kind of, I'm trying to just think of someone out there in public life who Les Miles reminds me of. Cam, if you can think of somebody, hit me with it. Les Miles, kind of a Willy Wonka-esque character, right? If you're going to have Gus Malzahn at Arkansas, right? Does anybody think that Gus Malzahn is going to turn that into some sort of transcendent program or take it to the heights that Frank Broyles once took it, when Arkansas was a perennial top 5 program? No, I don't think he will. Might the team be better? Yes, I think it'll be better. I think he'll recruit well, and I think he'll be very well received, and they'll be a fair to middling team. They're in an impossible division, I know. But, whatever. I'd much rather see, put it this way. Next year, if Malzahn's coaching Arkansas, there's no chance I'm going to watch any of their games. Zero. Even if they're playing Georgia. I haven't looked at the schedule. Who cares? Right? If Les Miles is coach, they could be playing like Louisiana Monroe. Where's the clicker? Where's the crack stream I can get on the, right? The backdoor feed. Get the scrambler out. De-scramble it. Les Miles is coaching. I was transfixed when Kansas blew out Boston College. That was, when you go back in, when ESPN does another 150th in 300 years, after 300 years of college football, that will go into that show. When Kansas blew out Boston College this year. Granted, Boston College, not a very good team. Steve Adazio, candidate for Rutgers, I might add, head coach at BC. So this is Sports by Brooks. We're live in Los Angeles, and we'll be here for the next few minutes. We're going to be visiting with Mike Coppinger coming up, talking boxing. Mike's going to get a little more sleep, I guess. Yeah, we're going to have him at the bottom of the hour to talk about, we're going to talk about Luis Ortiz and the fight that took place over the weekend in which he was cold-cocked in the 7th round by Deontay Wilder. And we're going to talk about Deontay Wilder, Alabama football fan. Wilder, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We might have to get a breakdown there from Mike on Deontay. Deontay Wilder, by the way, great personality, really good guy, social media guy. I don't know if you remember, but at one point, I think not at one point. I know if you go to YouTube, this is Deontay Wilder. Now, I'm sure he's the heavyweight champion of something, right? The lineal champion. That's Tyson Fury. I don't know what champion he is, but he's a heavyweight something champion. Deontay Wilder, that's who we're talking about. That was just a point of emphasis why I'm talking about him. And so at one point, Deontay Wilder got so pissed at one of his followers, I think it was on Instagram, that he fought this guy. He invited this guy, I think, to where he lived in Alabama, and they filmed it and they stuck it on YouTube. And it's like a little white guy. It's like me fighting Deontay Wilder. Not kidding. It wasn't a contest. Well, you wouldn't enter a contest where you're going to fight him for real, especially Deontay Wilder, who got probably the hardest punch in boxing right now. Jesus, No, but that's what I mean. Social media. We got to get him on. We have to get him on. So Deontay, well, you know what? We need to get Mike on the horn on that one. Get him to hook that up. I'm sure he will. Mike knows everybody. And he's the one that actually turned me on to Deontay, just the personality that he is. So Deontay Wilder is got a fight coming up against Tyson Fury. Talked about it a while ago, how much I really enjoy Tyson Fury as well. Great personalities. ESPN's on board. I'm going to ask Mike about what's going on with Tyson Fury. Now, is he a wrestler? Is he going to be committed to boxing? Is like how much longer? Because Tyson Fury is, just so you guys know, you probably don't know, but Tyson Fury is not going to be in boxing. You're not going to be looking up and seeing him in boxing in 10 years. You're just not. And you say, well, how do you know, Brooks? That's always happens. Well, this is different because he's got great representation. He's now with ESPN and Top Rank, but he's getting into pro wrestling, WWE, right? And that's going to lead somewhere. He's going to end up doing acting. He's going to end up repped by CAA. I mean, Nick Khan will probably be repping him before it's all over, who is a heavyweight in the boxing promotion business, but he's an agent at CAA. And he reps Max Kellerman. He reps all of the boxing guys. Joe Tessitore, who's the voice of boxing on ESPN, Top Rank. Mark Kriegel, you name it, go down the list. But I think Tyson Fury will probably be in that fold at some point. So my point is that he's not going to be hurting for money, right? And even though I think he's got like a Phillip Rivers brood, if I'm not mistaken, Tyson Fury, of course, is Gypsy, which is a really amazing story, his life. But Tyson Fury is not a guy he's a good boxer, right? Not a hard puncher, not a heavy hitter, not a knockout guy, not against someone like a Deontay Wilder or a top level guy. Now, I was going to say Anthony Joshua, but Anthony Joshua, Jesus, what happened to him against Ruiz, right? So Tyson Fury, just so you know, you may have seen the fight against Wilder, and he looked great. He totally outboxed Wilder, but Ortiz totally outboxed Wilder. Everybody outboxes Wilder, and Wilder knocks everybody out with one punch. And he keeps doing it. He hasn't lost, friends. I mean, he's upwards around 40 fights now. So it's not he's just getting, no, he's not getting lucky. When he finally hits you, if he's in the ring long enough, it just takes one. So that's a really intriguing fight because you got a guy in Fury who's 6'9", 6'10", English guy, right? With the big accent. And then you have Deontay Wilder from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Great guy, outgoing personality. Very interesting guy. But by the way, did you see his outfit over the weekend? I should have gotten a clip. Maybe we'll bring it in tomorrow. He looked like Captain Crunch. Captain Crunch, kind of an admiral looking thing before his fight against Ortiz on Saturday. But so you've got Fury and Wilder coming up, and we got Joshua and Ruiz coming up. And we'll talk to Mike about that in a few minutes. But we do have other things I want to get to. One of the things I want to get to is, I'm trying to decide. Let me think what I want to do first. We have clips of, where is it? The Jay Glazer stuff. So, yeah, I want to just point this out. Let's do this now. Let's do the Myles Garrett situation. Over the weekend, Jay Glazer had a very interesting report that flew under the radar. I actually was on the phone with Jay right before the show. He's going to come on the show probably next week. Hopefully, we're going to get him down to the studio. There's an extra room here where we could do, I think both of us could do an in-studio deal with Jay Glazer. Unbelievable guy, the best. And but I was talking to him about the story with Myles Garrett. And if you don't know, 2 weeks ago, Jay Glazer, right after, the incident involving Rudolph and Garrett took place, Glazer landed an interview with Myles Garrett, a one-on-one. And he was going to do that interview Saturday. This is 2 weeks ago, 2 weekends ago. And so in the process of setting that up, Jay reported some things on Fox yesterday and on TMZ actually earlier this week. So can you play that clip of Jay Glazer, clip number 3? This is from this yesterday on Fox and earlier this week on TMZ. I think it's.
Look, it's we talked about the helmet, and he just kind of used his hands. We wouldn't be in the situation right now.
I know, right? But he swung at him with the helmet.
Yeah, he swung it. And look, it's we talked about it on our show this week. I had an interview set up with him for Sunday for Fox NFL Sunday, so he could talk about this earlier. The Browns didn't think he should do it, and very, very strongly told him he should not do the interview. And people are saying, well, they wish he spoke earlier, right? Well, he was willing to speak earlier. They shut it down.
Why not do the interview to
I agree with you. That's exactly what he wanted to do as well. They shut it down, so I think he would have had these answers a couple of days ago. It's unfortunate. Now anything he says afterwards, it's just, it's after the fact. But he was trying to talk before the fact. I really wish we got this done. About an hour before myself and the guys from Fox, I was going down with producers, going to the airport, is when we got word. They had called him to the facility and told him, just pull the plug on this. And it's unfortunate.
And what about Mason Rudolph? Like, he didn't get a single suspension. I feel like he
I think he's going to get fined. I think some of the guys in this, there'll be more fines that gone on.
I agree.
It's just, the whole thing was just, they reacted real fast, obviously, because it was so, when you saw somebody getting hit with a helmet out there, it's like, oh my God. So they wanted to react very quickly because the public outcry. I can't say as much as I want because I'm still working on stuff for this weekend's Fox NFL Sunday. So there's a bunch of stuff here that I'm not able to say yet. But tune in to this week's Fox NFL Sunday.
And what would you do if someone was coming at you and you were in that situation? Would you drop the helmet?
Right
you smack him?
Right up here.
Spitting Chicklets. Here you go. Here he is. So you can keep playing that clip.
Browns fight because the news got bigger. 33 players fined. Myles Garrett's suspension indefinite was upheld by the league this week. It was also revealed, though, that Garrett alleges Mason Rudolph used a racial slur leading to his helmet slam. Why did that part of the story, though, take almost a week to get out?
Well, Kurt, I found out about this Thursday night, not at the game. I was trying to get it confirmed. I do know the Browns knew about it on Friday. You know that we had an interview set up with Myles Garrett for last weekend. For Sunday, I know the Browns, I think they were very nervous that he was going to reveal this in the interview with me on Sunday. And just talking to Myles, I was trying to get out of him whether or not he would confirm it for me or not. I got the sense that he wasn't going to, that he didn't want it out publicly because it would be bad for the league. He just thought it was going to be confidential inside that appeals process. Now, on the other side, I talked to Mike Tomlin, Steelers head coach, this morning. He says, absolutely not. Can't see Mason Rudolph saying it. I made sure I went around to all the team and made sure they knew he wouldn't say this and Mason Rudolph wouldn't say this. Mason talked to his teammates as well. The bottom line is Myles Garrett tried to get audio of this on Thursday and Friday, was immediately told there is no audio. Unless we have audio, maybe we'll never.
It's interesting. That was actually Fox, the second thing, not TMZ. But So he was on TMZ during the week. That was like on a Wednesday. Our buddy Evan Rosenblum. By the way, we need to get Evan on. We haven't had him on in a while because I want to talk to him about the where did he get that audio? I mean, our guy Evan got the Bob Kraft audio where he's clowning Trump. That's our guy. And Mike Babcock and Robert Littell. Maybe we'll have Robert on from TMZ Sports under the auspices of, Robert, of course, Black Sports Online, but now he's on TMZ Sports, which means he's on FS1, which is great for him. And it's about time. Very talented guy, Robert Littell. But so I digress. That was one of the things I wanted to get to today if we had time. I don't think we're going to have time. I just wanted to play the audio and kind of break it down, what Kraft said. I mean, I know it's kind of come out in the New York Times, but it hasn't come out. I mean, nobody really gives it the treatment that it deserves. And right now, it's radioactive. It's Trump. Nobody wants to touch it. Let me point out the number one thing right now, and I know a million people at ESPN and Fox right now, and NBC and CBS, okay? A million people. The number one thing that is being avoided at all cost and has been since the Kaepernick thing exploded because of Trump. Trump is the reason it exploded. Had Trump not said anything, nothing would have happened to Colin Kaepernick. Nothing. But so it is all Trump, right? And so the number one thing, if you're an on-air personality or whatever, producer, don't mention Trump. Avoid his name altogether as much as possible. So that's why, I mean, it's funny because TMZ Sports is so good at breaking stuff. And you think, TMZ, it's just the tabloid. No. Listen, ESPN FS1, that's tabloidy. That's gossipy, right? That's, the knitting circle, the gossipy stuff, the superficial stuff that doesn't really matter, but it fills time and it's compelling. That's what they're doing. TMZ actually is doing the reporting. They're the ones who have Jay Glazer on. And you heard what Jay said a second ago about Myles Garrett. Getting back to Myles Garrett, what I want to point out that's interesting is you heard Jay mention on TMZ when he did that guest hit that it seemed as though Myles Garrett wanted to do the interview with him, wanted to do the interview with Jay right after the incident in time for Fox NFL Sunday, right? In order to make clear why he did what he did. And I take that as tell the world what Mason Rudolph said, according to Myles Garrett. We now know, what the claim is from Garrett that was supposed to be private and confidential. Now, what we saw from Jay yesterday on Fox was different. And the indication was from Jay that Garrett wanted it to be private as part of the appeals process, right? So there's a little gear shift there where Garrett wanted it to come out, and Jay indicated that on TMZ. And actually, I should say this, Jay actually was going to do the interview the week before, a week ago, right? And it got called off at the last second. Jay said that on Fox, right? He didn't mention anything else, but he said that on Fox. And then he followed up yesterday and said, apparently Garrett wanted it to remain confidential. Well, wait a minute. Earlier, when he was talking to TMZ, Jay, and I talked to Jay about this morning, the indication was that perhaps Garrett wanted it to come out, right? And perhaps the people at the Cleveland Browns didn't want it to come out. And so it didn't. And so Myles Garrett did not do the interview with Jay Glazer. But most importantly here, there is a school of thought out there that Garrett waited, that he had absolutely no intention to ever bring up what Mason Rudolph said to him that set him off, right? And we now know from Jay Glazer's reporting and that potential interview that was called off at the last second, that's not the case. That Garrett initially with Glazer wanted to do that interview. The Browns called it off, and Garrett wanted to out Rudolph. Now, that's a little bit of extrapolation from me, but that's the gist of the story. So, now it's, he was going to slander and defame him in private, gutless, liar. Who knows what was said? I'm not saying that he's telling the truth. I don't know. But I do find it ridiculous, absurd, and unbelievable that there's no audio. I just find that impossible. It's the most mic'd up sport in the history of the world. It is the audio during games. Understand this. All right. If you know anything about sports history, but more specifically, the rise of the NFL, this is very important. NFL films, the conception of NFL films and documentaries from the 1960s onwards, 50 years ago, right, has been an integral part of popularizing the NFL. And a big part of those documentaries and those films and those segments on 60 Minutes over the years has involved audio on the field. This is a staple. And so we've got a quarterback in Mason Rudolph. We've got offensive linemen, 2 guys there for the Steelers, and we've got Myles Garrett. And you're telling me there's nothing. I find it really impossible to believe. And it also makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if there is audio and there was something said that perhaps is something that we're unaware of, or Myles Garrett hasn't sufficiently described. I don't know. Maybe. But, and the other big part of this is, and I think I mentioned this last week, I think we showed it on the screen. Yeah, we did, actually. What am I thinking? My brain losing the brain power there. Juvenile Alzheimer's or something. So as we showed you last week, the NFL, Brian McCarthy, the spokesman for the NFL, he was willing to go on the record with the Cleveland Plain Dealer and Mary Kay Cabot and say, oh, we checked it out. Nothing happened. Everything's cool. But he was not willing to go on the record and attach his name to a denial, when it came to the audio. It was an unnamed source. Well, to me, it was clearly McCarthy in the story we showed you, the diagram and the arrows of this story that the Browns beat reporter Mary Kay Cabot did for the Cleveland Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com. And this was in response to the question about audio and the appeal that the NFL rejected out of hand. The NFL didn't want to attach anyone's name to there's no audio. But they got no problem saying, wow, we checked it out. Don't worry about it. Yeah, Eddie helped us out, right? Janitor in the hallway of Cleveland Browns Stadium in that progressive commercial with Baker Mayfield. He helped us out. We got I love the description, by the way, of how the NFL investigated it. They did it with camera angles, and the word of the referee, who, by the way, was at least 10 yards away because we have the photos. When they were rolling around on the ground, Cleet Blakeman was the name of the ref. Cleet. Yeah. That bodes well, right, for Myles Garrett, right? A guy named, who's named Cleet, by the way? Cleet. You think Cleet's from Alabama? So Cleet Blakeman also had like earmuffs on, 10 yards away, and camera angles. No audio. That's what that literally is in the report. So That's what we have to go on. But I wanted to at least lay out the fact that Myles Garrett, it appears, did almost immediately want to come out and at least, add additional information, to the public to let people know where he was coming from. That's Jay Glazer's reporting, and we saw it on TMZ. A little bit different on Sunday because it appears the Browns got a hold of Garrett and said, no. Well, it doesn't appear. They did. And so why would they do that? If there is audio, is there something on that audio that they don't want anybody to hear? Or they just don't want the audio out, or, they don't want it to become a bigger thing than it really is, or they're trying to protect Myles and they want Myles to come back earlier. Probably all of the above, right? And I have a feeling that, Garrett's going to come back a lot earlier than people think. Personally, I think he should be gone 10 games, twice the Haynesworth suspension, rest of the season, first 4 games. I think he's probably going to start next year. First regular season game, be back. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And by then, everybody will have forgotten about it. That's kind of the reason I think why the Browns shut it down. Of course, Dee Haslam, one of the co-owners of the Browns, the wife of Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, his wife's wearing like a number 95 stocking cap at the game on Sunday. So clearly she has not disconnected herself from that situation and her support of Myles Garrett. So coming up, we're going to be talking to Mike Coppinger of The Athletic, and we'll talk some boxing with him, which I very much look forward to. And we'll get some pretty interesting fights. This Joshua Ruiz fight, that's a fight I'm going to watch. I don't know about you. You might remember, if you're a boxing fan, you do, obviously. But if you're a casual fan, you may or may not remember, Andy Ruiz Jr., who looks like a mayonnaise jar with arms, knocked out Anthony Joshua, who looks like, a Greek god, and shocked the world. And so now they've got a rematch, and it's going to be held in Saudi Arabia. And I want to find out if Mike's going to be going to Saudi Arabia and what his plans are. We got to get into that. Very, very interested to hear what the story is on that. So we'll visit with him about that. Ruiz Joshua 2. Not exactly the thriller in Manila, but certainly the Saudi Arabia aspect, I don't know if it necessarily makes it all that much more interesting. I'm guessing more lucrative for Mr. Eddie Hearn, who's going to be promoting the fight. But so that's going to be coming up. It's December 7th, so it's a couple of weeks away. It's a week from Saturday. So I'm thinking Mike's going to be on a flight to Air Mecca or something if he's going to be going out there. It's going to be pretty cool. Interesting. Now, you also have the other fight that's coming up, and this is kind of an unprecedented situation recently. All right? Bear with me. Recently. Where we have 2 big heavyweight fights coming up, right? We've got Wilder Fury 2. That's right around the corner. And, of course, really right around the corner, we've got what I just mentioned to you, Ruiz and Anthony Joshua. So this guy who's going to be on with us here in a second, Mike Coppinger, literally is the guy who has broken everything, is on top of all of the stories as it pertains to what's going on with these fights. So Mike Coppinger, it's M-I-K-E, Mike Coppinger, all one word, on Twitter. And He's with The Athletic. And listen, if you don't have The Athletic, you're not a sports fan. Oh, yes, I'm a sports. No, you're not. You're just not. And I don't mean that in a flippant way at this point. Like if my mother's watching right now, mother, get The Athletic, please. Get a subscription. Get Marcus to get you a subscription, whatever it is. Get Molly to do it. Get The Athletic, because this is the future, what they're doing. I got to admit, it's pretty awesome. And Mike is there along with Lance Pugmire, their signature boxing reporters, but they cover everything. And I do mean everything. And there's no ads, and they've got podcasts. It's the best. It's just the gold standard. And look, I'm a negative guy. I'm a hater guy. I'm a Schadenfreude guy. I don't have anything on The Athletic. I come up empty on the negative stuff. So now we're going to bring in Mike Coppinger and visit with him about the fight that just happened and the fight coming up between Joshua and Ruiz. We'll do that here in a moment. We're also going to be talking. I've got something I'm going to bring up in a bit, maybe not on this show, maybe tomorrow, about Colin Kaepernick, where you're like, oh, God, I don't want to hear about that. No, please. For the love of God, don't bring up Kaepernick. But I have flipped on Colin Kaepernick, literally. That is to say, done a 180 when it comes to my opinion on Colin Kaepernick. And that's no mean feat, because all of us, I mean, I don't think that, Andrew Yang, that's a good one, Cam. When it comes to Kaepernick, you're really kind of on one side there, right? Aren't you? Pretty much. So if you're going to flip, you're really going to flip. And I've really come to the conclusion that when he went down there on Saturday, the fact that they had received the waiver from the NFL and they knew it was different on Wednesday, and they did not offer any sort of waiver themselves as an answer until Saturday. To me, that is not a gesture of good faith. That's not someone who went down to Atlanta in order to try to get back into the NFL. It just isn't. Now let's bring up Mike Coppinger from The Athletic, who is the man. Think of Adrian Wojnarowski of boxing, the Adam Schefter, the Ian Rappaport. Ian comes on this show all the time. And how you doing, man? How you doing, Mike?
Hey, doing great. Just got back from Las Vegas yesterday. Another amazing knockout from Deontay Wilder. That was a lot of fun. And that right hand is just destructive and luckily keeps us on path now for Wilder versus Tyson Fury, which I think has a chance to be far and away the biggest heavyweight title fight stateside since Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis in 2002.
Wow. Wait a minute. By the way, is Baxter there?
Baxter's here.
Can you grab Baxter?
Let's grab him. Baxter, where is he? Let's grab him. Yeah.
Because we always have, if you don't know, Mike, I don't think I've told you, whenever we have guests who have dogs, we always have the dog, and I have dog sit for Baxter. Oh my God.
There he is.
I think I'm going to cry. I'm going to tear up. Oh my God.
Misses you, yeah.
That's, yeah, right. What a cutie pie. He's the best. That's Baxter. So,
he lost
now
interest.
Now wait a minute. Now hold up. That's a pretty ridiculous statement. It has the potential to be that big a fight. Explain why.
Absolutely. Well, the heavyweight division has been dormant ever since 2002 when Lewis knocked out Mike Tyson, because shortly after that, Vladimir Klitschko took over, and his fights were unaesthetically pleasing, to say the least. his only real big fight during that whole reign was against Anthony Joshua. That was in the UK, and that was a major fight over there. Sold out Wembley Stadium and everything else, but didn't have the same kind of attraction over in the US. Now we have Deontay Wilder, who's really turning into a star and keeps scoring all these vicious highlight reel knockouts that go viral. I think the one from Saturday, I saw one version of it, already had 2 million views on Twitter. And he's fighting Tyson Fury. And like Bob Arum told me the other day, there's no better advertisement for this fight than the highlights of the first fight, which was a heavyweight classic. So that fight did around 325,000 buys on pay-per-view. Good number, not a great number. Now we have the rematch coming up February 22nd in Las Vegas, and it's going to be a joint pay-per-view between ESPN and Fox. And that's why I know that this fight has a chance to really be big, because they're going to be plastering that fight all over championship weekend on Fox, all over the college football playoffs on ESPN, and really both going all in on this promotion.
That is really, really cool. Now, ESPN and Fox are actually working together. I mean, how the hell did that happen? I mean, and what's fascinating to me about this is, at least from what I can tell from your reporting, because you broke all this stuff and you're the one who has all the information, it appears that that sort of extraordinary thing, the ESPN working with Fox on something, was really the only way we could get this rematch.
Absolutely, because as you know, boxing is a very political sport, and there's 3 de facto leagues. You have the Zone, which works with Eddie Hearn and also Oscar De La Hoya. And then we have PBC, which has deals with Showtime and Fox, and then Top Rank, which has the exclusive output deal with ESPN. So when this deal was put together in late May and then finally finalized in June, they knew that it was going to be a joint pay-per-view. And there's only been 2 joint pay-per-views in history. There was the Mike Tyson-Lennox Lewis fight, HBO Showtime, and then those 2 networks collaborated again on the biggest fight in history, Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather. And that was the last time that Bob Arum and Al Heyman have worked together. So now they're going to be working together again on this fight. And this deal was all put together by Nick Khan of CAA, who got together with Shelly Finkel, a man that he knows very well, Wilder's manager. And Nick Khan and Shelly Finkel used to manage Manny Pacquiao together in the early 2000s. So that helped get this deal together. And then finally, Bob Arum and Al Heyman working in the background. They actually finally got together in a meeting. A guy that 1 year ago that Bob Arum said didn't even exist.
He was a fiction, right? Al Heyman. Not according to Drake, right? We're visiting with Mike Coppinger. Just drop that in there. We're visiting with Mike Coppinger, boxing reporter for The Athletic, #1 boxing breaking news guy in the country. Everything that we're talking about right now, Mike, literally, Mike was the guy who initially broke the story of these fights and drilled down with the names and the details. Now, hear me out here. Tyson Fury. I'm kind of wondering about this guy. Is this guy really committed to boxing? Because he seems like he's got a lot of things going on. He's an amazing personality, but based on his past, somewhat questionable past at times, can be led astray. I mean, where is he right now? Is he going to be a wrestler? Is he going to be an actor? Is he going to be committed? I mean, what's your take on Tyson Fury?
It's a fair question, Brooks. I think Tyson Fury is the kind of guy who's his number one interest is in being a personality, like you said, which is only going to help drive this pay-per-view to new heights. We saw him with several appearances on WWE's flagship programs, Raw and SmackDown on USA and Fox. And then he headlines, well, not headlines, but he was the co-main of Crown Jewel against Braun Strowman in Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's millions of eyeballs. And the crossover appeal worked for Floyd Mayweather. He faced the Big Show at WrestleMania a few years ago. I think it's going to work for Tyson Fury too. And I really do believe this fight's going to creep toward 1 million buys. Whether it hits it or not, I don't know. But I think it's going to be in that ballpark.
Now, is it going to be because of Fox and ESPN promotion? And you talked about the cross promotion with big events like the college football playoff, college football championship game? Or is it going to be because of this crossover thing that's going on with Tyson Fury and the things that he's involved with? I mean, how do you go from 350,000? I mean, I'm just being honest. I'm watching Get Up every morning. I'm watching Undisputed every morning, and I'm not hearing them talk about this fight. So how do we go from 350,000 to 1 million?
Well, they wouldn't have been talking the fight. They wouldn't have been talking about the fight now because in order to get to this fight, Wilder had to beat Ortiz, which he did with a seventh round knockout Saturday, which was spectacular. He knocked him pretty much, unconscious, not unconscious, but close to it, to the brink of unconsciousness with one single right hand. So once this fight is officially announced, which could be this week, I think we'll really see that fight streamed, hammered hard on ESPN shows, Fox shows. And don't forget, this fight's going to take place a couple of weeks after the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl is on Fox. So I'm expecting big promotion there as well.
Yeah. So you think we may see, hey, it's Fury and Wilder on the Super Bowl, or have Deontay on the sideline?
I think it's probable, yeah. And Deontay Wilder from Alabama, there's a tie-in there with Alabama playing, and Fury from England. It's going to be a huge fight. And like Aram says, the first fight was so good. I think if that fight would have been on ESPN Fox, that first fight alone would have done much better. But on Showtime is in less homes. CBS wasn't really pushing that fight, which is Showtime's partner. So I think even now, if the fight was on Showtime, it would do like 500. So I'm just extrapolating from there. Either way, it's a big heavyweight title fight. And then we have another great advertisement in the upcoming Andy Ruiz Jr. Anthony Joshua fight in Saudi Arabia. I'll be heading over to the Middle East on Sunday.
I was speculating, wild speculation on the show throughout today. What's going on? Is he going to be going over there? I want to get the scoop on it. But wait a minute. I laugh to myself when I hear you say, well, a great advertisement is the Joshua Ruiz advertisement. It's the heavyweight championship. What are you talking about? It's its own heavyweight. Is it not? I mean, is this, how big a fight is this? You're saying it's not as big as Wilder and Fury?
This is a huge fight. I'm not saying that. I just meant
don't let Eddie Hearn hear you say that.
I don't mean it like that. Oh, I'm just saying that when people watch a great heavyweight title fight, they're going to want to watch another great heavyweight title fight. But this fight is a major fight in and of itself. And this is really for the number one guy in the division, I think, Ruiz versus Joshua. Especially if Ruiz can solidify his standing with another victory over Joshua. That first fight in June, Andy Ruiz took the fight on late notice. And like you said, doesn't have a great body. Joshua looks like an Adonis. Takes the fight on a couple weeks' notice, 15-1 underdog. Knocks Joshua out, and there was nothing fluky about it. This guy survives a brutal left hook from Joshua in round 3, knocks Joshua down later in the round, and then finishes him off in round 7. And they're going over to Saudi Arabia. I'm told that Eddie Hearn, the site fee was $60 million, somewhere in that vicinity. So that's why it's going over there. Somewhere in the ballpark of a $60 million site fee.
Wow. I mean, what's the setup over in Saudi? How's it going to work? Are you going to be in the green zone?
It's in Riyadh, which is right. Riyadh's the capital of Saudi Arabia. It's in Diriyah in Riyadh, and they've actually been constructing a stadium specifically for this fight that they started building, I think 6 weeks ago. And I looked at the video. The stadium looks pretty good. It holds around 15,000. Saudi Arabia is in close proximity to England, so I mean, close enough, relatively speaking. So there'll be a lot of Brits traveling over. Joshua's probably the biggest global star in boxing, even if Canelo is the biggest star in North America. I mean, Joshua, you go over in England or anywhere over in Europe, and there's billboards of Joshua everywhere. And he really needs a victory here to keep that.
This is really fascinating. We're visiting with Mike Coppinger of the Athletic Talk in Boxing. And if you're a casual boxing fan, you're watching this, you're like, okay, wait a minute. We've got 2 heavyweight championship fights, but okay, are these guys going to fight each other? I mean, who's the heavyweight champ? I mean, so how does that all work, Mike? I mean, when we have these 2 fights, what's going to happen in the future coming out of these fights?
Well, the good thing is that on the surface, these are 2 great fights. I mean, these fights are both rematches, and both of the first fights were great fights. These are not setup fights. So that's great. Going into the future, if Ruiz beats Joshua and Wilder beats Fury, that's an easy fight to make because both Ruiz and Wilder are with Al Haven and the PBC. So that fight,
the politics,
that'll be easy fight to make, and that'll be an undisputed heavyweight champion. And what a big fight that would be in the U.S. You have Ruiz, who's becoming a star now, and he can really get to the next level with another win. And then Wilder, of course, is already getting there as well. But and then Wilder Fury has a rematch clause, and that fight, the third fight, will take place in the summer. So I think we could definitely see Wilder Ruiz if they both win even if they lose in late 2020, and if Joshua and Fury both win, that's just an unbelievably big fight in the
Yeah.
UK. There's so many different variables here because I don't know who's going to win either fight, really.
Yeah.
They're both coin flip fights, which is so rare in boxing. To get that for heavyweight title fights with guys who are stars, this could really help push boxing to the next level.
And wait a minute. You're saying Joshua and Ruiz, that's a coin flip fight. Is that what you're calling?
I think you have to say that because
really,
I think you have. I mean, Joshua lost the first fight and he was in great shape. There was nothing fluky about it. He wasn't like one shot caught him. He hit some, it was a 7th round knockout. Ruiz's hands were too fast for Joshua. The pressure style was something Joshua couldn't deal with. And it's going to be a problem for him in the second fight too. Everyone I speak to in boxing, half the people are picking Ruiz, half are picking Joshua. And most people don't really have a strong conviction of who they think is going to win. So I do think it's a real coin flip fight.
Ruiz can go the distance. You think the conditioning's not going to be a factor? I mean, maybe he won't need to go to the distance. I know, because Joshua's chin is questionable.
Joshua's chin is questionable, no doubt about that. And his mentality, I mean, does he have the same confidence now? That's the question. What is his psyche like after getting knocked out and ostensibly embarrassed at Madison Square Garden before 20,000, 10 of which traveled from the UK just to see him? He sat in his apartment in New York afterward and didn't really leave, from what I heard, was just shell-shocked. And I know he was acting strange in the ring afterward, like he was okay with him. But I think people will always act a little strangely when they're in shock. So I don't know what his psyche is like. I know Andy Ruiz, he thinks he walks around like he's the big man on campus now. He has all the confidence in the world. They always say, right, when you become champion, you become that much better. I don't know who's going to win, but I'm excited to be there and find out.
Last thing for you, we're visiting with Mike Coppinger, the Athletic. You got to come back, man. Now, when are you leaving for Saudi?
I'm leaving on Sunday afternoon. I'll be back the following Monday.
So on Sunday, so you can have an unlocked phone and everything. You got to be able to text with me or come on the show, right?
I believe so. I better figure that stuff out, huh?
Why not? Yeah, we'll figure it out, man. And I want a full report when you get back. Give me a souvenir, something like that out there. So, but I want to ask you about Manny Pacquiao. You brought him up earlier in the context of Shelly Finkel and Nick Khan, but what's going on with Manny Pacquiao? I mean, he's still fighting. I mean, what's going to happen with him?
They're plotting his next fight right now. I'm hearing March or April for Manny Pacquiao's first fight of 2020. He had an excellent resurgence in 2019. We really didn't know where Pacquiao fit in the sport at the age of 40 heading into the year. And he absolutely dominates Adrian Broner in January. And not just dominates him, but it scores a hard knockdown, which is what we've been lacking from Pacquiao, one of the greatest punchers in boxing history. He hadn't been showing that power really since the last decade. And then he follows that up with a July victory over Keith Thurman, an excellent fighter, scores a first-round knockdown there.
That was a freaking battle. That was amazing. I mean, to me, that's what indicated to me, Mike, okay, keep fighting. It's like you're not really sure when you're that age, you could fall off the cliff. But to me, I mean, that was my indication that Manny has still got a little time left.
And having watched Manny Pacquiao train up close with Freddie Roach in Hollywood, he has an amazing work ethic that's not matched, and I don't think matched often across all sports. The guy goes a million miles a minute. And there's two opponents right now they're looking at, Mikey Garcia and Danny Garcia, no relation to one another.
Ooh, Mikey Garcia and Manny. What do you think of that?
I think they're both great fights. Mikey Garcia's luster fell off a little bit after Errol Spence dominated him. But Pacquiao's a smaller fighter than Errol Spence and a different fighter. I would give Mikey Garcia certainly I think he would perform a lot better than he did against Spence. But Danny Garcia might be the tougher fight. Bigger guy, impeccable timing, great counterpuncher, and Pacquiao loves to, just jump in.
Well, you would think that. What do you want the Mikey Garcia fight, Pacquiao? I mean, he doesn't want to fight Danny Garcia. That's a tough fight.
I think Mikey Garcia makes a little more sense for Manny Pacquiao. I think Mikey Garcia is a little more well-known, and I think it'll be a great promotion. But I'm fine with either fight. No complaints either way.
Yeah, Mikey's kind of at a crossroads. I mean, he's going to take a fight like that. I mean, you're not going to get Spenced, right? But that's a tough fight. I mean, by the way, I want to ask you quickly, because we got to get going, about Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez, for my money, is the biggest boxing star on earth. He should be much, 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 much bigger in the United States. He really should be. And obviously he's going through a lot of turmoil. Thanks to your reporting, we know this with Oscar De La Hoya, the guy that he works with. What's going on between Canelo and Oscar De La Hoya?
I had that report over at The Athletic, which was Canelo Alvarez's first on-record comments where he criticized Oscar De La Hoya. So Canelo comes out in the article, blasts Oscar De La Hoya, says he has no loyalty in him, that he's not a grateful guy.
He's his promoter, right? I mean, isn't he in charge of it? Yeah.
He's his promoter. And the press conference, the later that day after the story ran, they didn't even look at one another at the press conference.
Wow.
And Canelo goes on to score a brutal knockout of Sergey Kovalev, which I think will probably end up garnering knockout of the year honors. And after the fight, I hear that everything's still status quo. Canelo doesn't talk to Oscar, doesn't want to be with them. But
wow,
I'm not sure he can get out of the contract. We're going to see what happens there. I know there's stuff going on behind the scenes, trying to find a way, and we'll see if Canelo can. I just don't think this is I think it's an irreparable relationship. So where they go from here, who knows?
So what's the story in your podcast? How do we get your podcast? How does that work?
I have a podcast with Lance Pugmire, who also covers boxing for The Athletic, the Pug and Cop Boxing Show. That's available over at The Athletic if you're a subscriber, and we hope you are, not just for the boxing content, but we have pretty great content, I think, across all sports, especially the NHL, which I love. And then we have now the show is now available. It's unlocked. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. It's on
really?
Google
Wait.
Podcasts,
The pod is unlocked.
It's unlocked now.
Wow.
The only thing that's not unlocked is the special post-fight shows that we do only for the big fights on location.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough, man. This is an exciting time. Big and some amazing personality. The Wilder Fury thing is going to be amazing because there's going to be so many people in the United States, particularly they're going to be introduced this time around to Fury and Wilder both. They're really cool, dynamic, unique personalities. A lot of times they try to sell you on that. They are the real deal, both of those guys, man. I'm really excited and excited to stay in touch with you about this stuff.
Definitely a really exciting time for boxing. And hopefully the heavyweights, the boxing division's always gone only as far as the heavyweights will take them. So
yep.
Take us to the top.
This is awesome, man. Well, we'll be in touch, Mike. Thanks so much. And if I don't talk to you before you go to Saudi, man, be safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's Mike Coppinger of The Athletic. And as I said before, if you're a sports fan, just get The Athletic, please. Just get it. Even if you're not going to check it every day, just get it. Okay. All right. You lose your sports fan card. It's kind of a dumb thing to say, but yeah, you've got to get The Athletic. And Mike, if you care about boxing at all, and look, I don't want to be jingoistic, but if you're an American, you should care about boxing. Whether we all like it or not, boxing is part of America, and there will always be, right? You lose touch with boxing. 4 or 5 years, haven't been paying attention. Don't go. Who's that? What is this? Who's this guy? Fury? That's a weird name, Tyson. And next thing you know, you got the pay-per-view with your buddies, right? Or you're down at the sports bar, watching the fight. And as Mike said, this is the dawning of a new era. It really is. And I'm really excited to be able to cover it here on Fancred, and hopefully we're going to have, I really want to get Fury and I really want to get Wilder. I think we have a shot to get them for this show. I think it'd be really amazing to introduce those guys to you guys here on Fancred. So that's going to do it for our show today. Tomorrow, Andrea Kramer of Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, HBO Real Sports. She'll be with us tomorrow, among others. I think Zach Cox of Nesson will be with us as well. So hope you'll stop by and join us. For our producer, Cam Smith, this is Brooks Melchior live from Los Angeles saying so long. This has been Sports by Brooks on Fancred.